Hello, we're back after a long hiatus.
Indeed, we seem to disappear when the show goes off air, and perhaps not so strange. We've been doing this for quite a few years now, and we run out of ideas for what to do in during the hiatus, basically. But now House of the Dragon is back with 8 new episodes for the season. And perhaps you'll have to put up with us next year as well, it seems, with A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
That'll be fun.
Due to be released then. But yeah, for now we're here for House of the Dragon and for the first episode of the season, which is titled, ominously for book readers, I would say, A Son for a Son.
As usual, we will be starting with the episode summary. And after almost 2 years, we are back in Westeros again. And there's a brand new opening. Instead of the Valyrian blood lineage mechanism, we see a living tapestry showing the history of the Targaryens, all the way from Old Valyria to a doom, on to a conquest, through the reign of Jaehaerys the Old King, to the present day, ending with the death of Lucerys Velaryon and the dragon Arax at the hands of Aemon Targaryen and the jaws of Vhagar.
You'd have to go even further back for the last time that we saw this location where the episode opens, as we are at Winterfell and then at the Wall, where Jaehaerys is meeting with Cregan Stark to persuade him to support Rhaenyra's cause. Cregan explains why the North is concerned about what lies beyond the Wall when the winter comes, citing the dragons that Jaehaerys and Alysanne brought with them that refused to cross the Wall. During the conversation at the top of the Wall, a raven arrives bearing grim news for Jace.
And then we're on to Dragonstone, where Rhaenys returns after patrolling on Meleys. Daemon tries to insist on her coming with him to King's Landing to kill Vhagar, as Rhaenyra is still missing. He also berates her for not having killed Aegon when she had the chance, but she ignores his attempt at ordering her about, pointing out that he is not the king.
In a short scene at the docks of Driftmark, we are then introduced to a sailor named Alan, who apparently was the one to save Corlys's life when he was wounded and pulled him out of the water. There's definitely some awkwardness between him and Corlys in this scene.
Yeah, say that. Back in King's Landing, we get brief glimpses of Helena, who's afraid of the rats, and Alicent, who has been sleeping with Criston Cole, hubba hubba, before we move into a council session. The issue of the blockade of King's Landing is the main topic, and there's kind of a brief mention of perhaps making Dalton Greyjoy the new master of ships. King Aegon is pretty impatient. He wants to attack the Riverlands together with Aemon, but Otto wants Vhagar to remain to defend the city.
Sensible. Further evidence of the tension within the Greens is given as King Aegon holds court. He attempts to be magnanimous to some of the petitioners, and Otto has to step in and point out that he's not being too clever. A certain blacksmith named Hugh is introduced at this point. And afterwards, Loras is shown flattering Aegon and telling him that perhaps he should have a different hand than his grandfather.
Out at sea, a ship is stopped by the blockade and searched, and aboard they find Massaria, and she's brought to Dragonstone, where she is questioned by Daemon regarding where her loyalties lie. He has her locked up in a dungeon and wants her to tell them about her spies and contacts within the Red Keep. This comes after the return of a grieving Rhaenyra, who has finally found Luke's body, and now has told her council that she wants Aemon Targaryen.
And presumably not for dinner. Later we see Daemon entering King's Landing in disguise and making contact with a gold cloak that Massaria has told him about, as well as a rat catcher with gambling debts. He tasks them with killing Prince Aemon. They ask him what to do if they can't find Aemon, and we never see precisely what he answers.
We didn't. The two men enter the Red Keep by way of secret passages made by Maegor the Cruel. They pass the throne room where Aegon is drinking with some of his companions, making jests about what his byname ought to be. The men then make their way to the royal apartments and come across Helena and her 2 children, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera. Maelor seems to have been dropped. We learn that Daemon told them, a son for a son, and after finding out what child's Jaehaerys, they killed him and cut off his head.
Ooh, yeah, pretty nasty. Helena flees with Jaehaera and then finds Alicent, who's in bed with Cole, and the episode ends with her saying, they killed the boy.
Ooh, very ominous. Yep. Let's discuss some changes from the source material, Fire and Blood. And we start in the north, where we have Jaehaerys with Cregan Stark we kind of briefly start at Winterfell, but then we go all the way up to the Wall, and that's actually one of the big changes because Jacaerys actually doesn't go up to the Wall when he visits and treats of Cregan Stark.
No, and you can see why they wanted to do this. They wanted to show some of the iconic locations. I mean, when they cut into Winterfell, the shot looks almost like when the Stark family is gathered to see Robert arriving in the first episode.
Yeah.
There's even a red-haired girl who looks suspiciously like Sansa, for example.
Yeah.
The whole scene is set up to look very much like the first episode of Game of Thrones, and then of course they want to revisit the Wall and all the iconic scenery of that. Cregan is styled very much in a young Jon Snow way, I should say, with the hairstyling and the way they've coached him on the accent and everything. So we're definitely back with a proper Stark here.
Yeah, but there are some other details changed. I mean, they invent a brand new tradition for Starks, which is that 1 in 10 men, when winter is coming, are given to the Watch by all households. Kind of an invented tradition. And I think they just wanted to underscore the seriousness of the North takes it. George doesn't really have this idea of this 1 in 10, and I think we open actually with what looks like to be some sort of cousin or something of his getting selected to go.
Yeah.
It clearly seems to imply that he's part of the household, he's part of the family. We really don't get much information about Cregan at all, actually.
I mean, he points out that the tradition holds for the Starks as well, that
Yeah.
they send one. They've obviously forgotten that
By
by
the
the
time,
time of A Game of Thrones. I think all of this, as well as some of the interactions that we have with Cregan and Jacaerys, ties back to their partial invention of the prophecy. As I said, we tend to believe that the amount of weight that they've put on the A Song of Ice and Fire prophecy and how much effect that had on the decisions of Aegon, the Conqueror, is beyond quite what George intended. And clearly they have it that they make it sound as if part of the reason that Tormund surrendered to Aegon was that Aegon explained the importance of the prophecy to him, and obviously pressed on him the importance of having the Wall properly manned and all of that. So I think all of that ties into that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, they have had all these little details. Like, it never changes. Versus Jacaerys and Alysanne tried to get their dragons across, and she was Alysanne. Jacaerys never is said to have made the attempt to do so. I don't think he even necessarily went to the Wall at all. Alysanne went on her own while he stayed at Winterfell. And this is where they don't mention the fact that Starks gave the gift, or rather they extended Jacaerys gave the new gift to the Watch to help to support them, based on what Alysanne reported about their needs and so on. The World of Ice and Fire suggests that, the Starks may not have been all that happy, some of them, to basically give a big chunk of their lands away after already having given, the original gift. But nothing of that is mentioned here. Alicent and Kristen Cole. It's
Alicent is feeling lonely, apparently.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I recall from the first season when there were interviews of the various actors, and they kept going on, how Alicent was so interested in Kristen Cole.
And then she was upset that Rhaenyra stole him, basically.
Yeah, and like...
when you knew I was interested in him, basically. And there was very little to support it in
the actual show. And what it turns out is people have found... We're looking through scripts of those episodes, and they cut scenes that kind of, and lines of dialogue that made it more explicit, and it made it, and I guess they were just trying to tighten the episodes, trying to get them to fit within a time frame. And that was one of the things that were sacrificed. And there are, just the vaguest of hints of it that remain. But now, it was a subtext that, even if it was maybe lost to many of us, was intended to be there, and now it's come to...
Yeah, it's no longer subtext.
No, now it's very text. But now we see it, or it's quite clear, although they are, Alicent is reticent. We open with her kind of saying, we can't do this again, and we end with her, she can't help herself. That's half Dornish. Cole is too interesting.
Yes.
Too charming.
There's clearly some a strong sense of her, not being able to help herself, and we'll see what where they're going with that, I suppose.
Yeah,
what sort of role it will play.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a book thing. Again,
it's not.
There's no hint at all that anything like that actually existed. Okay, except so in the very original Rogue Prince version, George did briefly have this notion that Damon might have seduced Alicent. But he dropped that on revision and so on. So that kind of disappears. So I guess they may kind of take that cue from that. But I don't think they need it. They have shown that they do not need cues from George to come up with things if they feel that it's helps the story in some fashion.
Partially gives Alicent more to do, I guess, in sort of private interactions as opposed to just her interactions with the council and
yeah. Well, we get the introduction of Alan of Hull, but it's quite clear. I mean, obviously, a lot of characters have their ages changed about.
Yeah.
So some of the kids are much younger than they ought to be. Some of the people are younger than they ought to be. Or in this case,
there is no way you're selling Alan and presumably, I don't know. Do we know that there is an Adam cast as well, or?
No, we know that there's an Adam cast.
Okay, fine. So presumably, there's no way to sell those two as the bastards of Laenor because they look to be older than Laenor.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. When in the books they are teenagers, and Corlys comes out and brings them out after Laenor's. And
these are Laenor's.
These are Laenor's sons.
Yes.
And
the Laenor who showed such remarkable interest in sleeping with women, but yes, he somehow managed to have these.
Not twins. They are two consecutive. And obviously, the clear implication of the text is actually they are Corlys' sons, but he didn't want to until. I was about to spoil. I will not spoil, but until certain things happened, he wasn't going to reveal them at all. Now it seems that. I guess I don't know if they are formally acknowledged or not. We'll find out more, I guess, as we go on. But they are around, but they are older. They're not. There's no chance he's gonna say, "Oh, these are actually Laenor's kids." The most I suppose I can see is if he wants to try and keep. If the idea is, I mean, the thing is, if they are older than Laenor, let them for the marriage.
Yeah.
So, whatever, right?
Yes, I suppose it could just be that he hasn't felt comfortable with acknowledging them anyway. But yes, they there's definitely a completely different backstory there, or it's going to play out very differently. And it's a bit of a shame because I kind of like those characters as young.
Young, callow, very you lose that quality. There's some stuff with Adam and Alan that like
I don't think it will play out at all as effectively.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm sure we'll have interesting stories. The actors, Alan's actor is very good. We have him formerly kind of as a shipwright or as a sailor working in the fleet and having allegedly been the one who pulled Corlys out of the water when he was nearly killed. That's different. They're. We'll discuss it more when we get to it. I mean, some of you already know, but some of you don't. Let's move on. Well, okay, Malor.
Yes.
He's gone. Clearly enough. He's up there.
I don't think they just misplaced him for the day.
No, but
it's quite clear that they are looking for the son.
Yeah.
So it changes the whole. I mean, this scene is going to get talked about, I imagine, but perhaps not as much as it might have been. In the book, it's very much a Sophie's choice.
Exactly.
For
Blood and Cheese asks her which of the sons would you want killed, and she chooses the infant, who may be thinking, he won't understand, and then we're telling Blood, so you hear that, your mother doesn't love you, and then they probably turn around and kill the other one just to twist a knife and chop off his head in one stroke. Here we hear the sounds of the sawing, and we don't see it, fortunately, but we hear it. That was an interesting touch.
At least they kill him first because he's not making any sense.
Another aspect, of course, is the whole of who are we targeting? Because in Fire and Blood, the notion is that there were speculation that maybe he wanted to go after Aegon, but Aegon was too protected by Kingsguard around him all the time. It'd be easier to go after the children. Aemond is never actually mentioned, as I recall, as a potential target. And the fact that those guys showed up there, to me, it's like they may have thought the same thing. It's too dangerous, too difficult. The best odd is getting a child. So effectively, Daemon said, we're going to kill one of the little kids, one of my, great nephews or nieces.
I mean, they were. Oh, you mean in the book or what
in the book? But it's quite clear. I think that I think I've seen people say, "Oh, of course he must have really wanted to go after Aegon or Aemon. Like he could have ended the war so quickly if he had done that." And but they were hard to get to, and he wanted revenge. He wanted to give Rhaenyra. He promised her revenge, and so they, Aegon's as
no. I think it's pretty unlikely that
the children
were the target or the sons. And here they give him the slight mitigation of being that the initial choice is Aemond, but of course we see in the discussion that they ask him, what are we gonna do if we can't find Aemond? We don't see his response, and later in the exchange between Blood and Cheese, we're never called Blood and Cheese.
I believe not. That's how we're known as.
Yes. So I'm not quite sure how they are going to end up, but I guess maybe find the monikers. But anyway, they say he said a son for a son.
Yeah.
Implying that, well, if you can't find Aemond, any son in the household will do, basically.
And actually, another small change, speaking of Blood and Cheese, Blood in the accounts of the histories is a former Gold Cloak who lost his job.
Makes more sense.
Was fired and had a grudge against the Hightower.
Yes. Because, here he still has his job.
Yes, he just doesn't like them and doesn't like how things are under them. Anything else that we have popped into your head as significant changes? I think we've kind of covered the main things. Obviously, something like Rhaenyra. Well, okay, here's a change. Yeah. Rhaenyra doesn't spend all her time at this point hanging around Storm's End, hoping to see Luke's body wash up. That doesn't happen. But that's I can kind of understand she is kind of a wreck in the immediate aftermath of it. So there is that sense of Dragonstone being a little rudderless and Daemon kind of doing things, and
there's a vacuum.
There's a little vacuum
step into, and he doesn't have any hesitation about doing so, and certainly Rhaenys seems to feel that maybe he's taking a little much on himself when Rhaenyra isn't around.
Background information, some of the things that may need some more explanation for people who don't remember or have not read the material. Cregan Stark looks like quite a young man. He is at this time.
Surprisingly young.
Yes, some of that with level 40. In fact, he became Lord of Winterfell at the age of 13 when his father, Lord Rickon, died. But his uncle Bernard was his sort of Lord Protector and Regent. And then when he turned 16, well, his uncle really didn't want to relinquish power when he came of age. So
that's always awkward. There
was a lot of tensions, and after a year or so, well, Cregan said that's enough is enough, and imprisoned Bernard and his sons, his cousins, for the effrontery of trying to rule. And he's going to be a very significant figure in the North, in the history of the Starks in the North.
And you don't mess with Cregan Stark.
You don't mess with Cregan Stark is one of the things.
You really don't.
By this point in time, he's had a wife. He has a child. The wife passed away. Aura Norre, his son Rickon, is his only heir, but there's no mention of that right now. And when Jacaerys goes up to Winterfell, I should say, they spend a couple of weeks. I mean, the accounts are, becoming very good friends, training together, hunting, feasting, discussing things. There's a rumor I think it's Mushroom, who's the primary source of it, that there was a bastard half sibling named Sarah Snow, who Jace allegedly falls in love with and allegedly marries in front of a weirwood. But the end of result is as there is. Well, I mean, they don't mention the name of it. The Pact of Ice and Fire is what they call it. The agreement between Jace and Cregan that Cregan's son will marry Jace's firstborn daughter as part of his pledge to support the Rhaenyra's rightful claim to the throne.
They don't make anything of that, which is odd.
Yeah, the term Pact of Ice and Fire kind of...
Or the betrothal.
He I mean, he obviously, when he comes to his mother, he's very emotional.
Yes,
so
that's true.
I think my recollection of Liza, like he was going to start to try and say on the terms of it, but he couldn't hold it together. And a very good scene, actually. I'm liking the actor Harry Collette, I believe his name, or Collette. He's a good choice for Jace. Another bit of background, of course, is Maegor's the secret passages under the Red Keep. Of course, they featured in Game of Thrones at various points in times. They were put there by Maegor, who kind of finished the Red Keep, built it. He was very paranoid. He wanted secret dungeons.
He wasn't called the Cruel for nothing.
No. He wanted secret passages. I'm pretty sure we actually discussed them for a Game of Thrones episode, saying, describing how he hired all these masons, and then when they were finally done, he gave them this great big feast, and then had them all killed. So that the secrets died with him. Obviously, as we see, the rat catchers will kind of stumble across them and use them to help hunt for the rats. And
so I guess it would make sense if you are looking for rats.
You'll probably notice, like, where
are they coming? How are they coming in here, and so on. So that makes sense that they would. And they'd want to be able to move around in the Red Keep sort of unseen. They wouldn't be, want to walk around right where the nobles are. And but they tend to be put to nefarious use most of the time.
And then the dragons, where Daemon thinks, Caraxes and Meleys will handle Vhagar together.
Yeah, he doesn't think that Caraxes, who's seen some fighting.
Yeah.
Not any dragon-on-dragon fighting.
No.
None of them have done that, but still he thinks that they need two of them to handle Vhagar. Obviously, Vhagar is by far the largest. Has Vhagar seen any dragon-on-dragon fighting? Other than, eating Eric's?
Other than that, we don't know if there were ever any encounters with wild dragons that we haven't heard of, but I don't think so. Balerion did, and to my knowledge, that's it.
Yeah. So it is kind of an unknown for them, I guess, and we this idea that when you are having dragons fighting, they expressed that during the first season, I believe, fear of dragons going to war.
Yeah.
What that will mean, and we obviously got a little glimpse of it, a very small glimpse when Vhagar decided to make a snack out of Eric's, and really. But certainly, if you have dragons that are more closely matched, you can imagine it getting very ferocious because they are very wild and bloodthirsty. I don't know how much control the riders will have when it comes to actual battle between dragons. Once a dragon gets injured, I suspect that its bloodlust and ferocity is going to take over, and you're probably just a glorified passenger at that point. It's going to be an interesting element of the future of the season, I think, and the future of the series, and whether Daemon is accurate in this
assessment.
Yes. Vhagar is huge, but not very maneuverable, of course.
No.
Caraxes is shown as being quite agile.
And very, as battle tested as any dragon
can be.
Yeah, Vhagar,
Yeah.
of course, but then Craxus is the most battle-tested of the dragons.
And we get a glimpse in this episode, of course, speaking of dragons and the dangers to dragons, we see that they have placed scorpions
Yes.
on the Red Keep and are manning those. We see Vhagar, they don't know that it's Vhagar flying in
At first,
basically, so they're keeping ready and aiming at the dragon in case it's somebody else.
Wouldn't do much good against Vhagar or most dragons. I mean, one of the aspects of it is, I mean, a scorpion did kill a dragon. He killed Meraxes in Dorne, but that was as a 1 in a million shots.
Yes.
When all you have are 1 in a million shots, you might as well take them. But they're not the most effective way.
No, let's forget about Game of Thrones here for a moment.
Oh, basically. They did something. They had some super scorpion or. Well, something.
First of all, you've got the Night King throwing a goddamn spear and killing the
magic spear. You have a magic helmet as well.
No, I don't think he had a magic helmet, but he definitely qualified for the Olympics with that throw. And then, of course, you've got the fleet that Dany forgot about that shoot down Rhaegal.
Right.
So,
I
and both of those, I think, are shown basically going through like the neck or something.
I didn't watch either of those.
No,
so I'm
no, and I've mostly blanked it out.
Yeah.
But basically, what we've seen, they said.
But how was it? So I guess we'll just review. From what I recall, people said it wasn't like, we have a scorpion. It's like it was like the Citadel created some sort of super scorpion or something. It's like it was like some super device for killing dragons.
Well, it was supposed to be some sort of dragon killing scorpion thing, yes, with a big bolt. But even so. Having it on a ship, that wouldn't.
No, the Romans had released such on ships. True. That wouldn't be a problem.
But yes, I think from what we see in the written material, if you want to take out an adult dragon, you gotta hit in the eye or possibly in through the mouth.
Oh no! Death comes in through, or death goes out through, but does it come in? Like basically, the idea is like. They would just melt anything you tried to.
Oh, okay.
So but for the eye, for the brain is probably it. Or I mean, the surest way to kill a dragon is to have another dragon do it.
Yes, that definitely helps, and
which we have seen and will no doubt be seeing.
We'll no doubt see more about that. That's very sad.
Well, until the next episode.
Yes, the next episode we'll be back for that, and
we'll speak a little bit about other things to do. Leave comments, questions.
Yes, and if there's anything else...
Actually, you know what's a good thing? If there's some interesting questions, we could start actually addressing them week to week.
Definitely.
At the end of it. So,
because after so many years, I think maybe we will start running out of background material. We'll start running out of dragon material. And since Elio has this insistence that we can't review since we worked on the material that...
it was published in a book.
Yes.
It was published in a book. We are not going to review it as such.
Although you may see me comment, grumble.
And again, there are positive things to say.
There are absolutely positive things to say.
So
I said comment and grumble. Those are different things.
Okay. So there are positives and negatives.
Yes.
Until then.